Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 6, verse number 132. We shall be continuing from Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamam Bande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Sutrera Mukhya Arthana Karah Vyakhyan Kalpanarthe Tumi Taha Kara Achadan. You do not explain the direct meaning of the Brahma Sutras. Indeed, it appears that your business is to cover their real meaning. Purport: this is a typical of all Mayavadis or atheists who interpret the meaning of Vedic literature in their own imaginative way. The real purpose of such foolish people is to impose the impersonalist conclusion on all Vedic literature. The Mayavadi atheists also interpret the Bhagavad-Gita. In every verse of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita, it is clearly stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In every verse, Vyasadeva says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, or the Blessed Lord said. It is clearly stated that the Blessed Lord is the Supreme Person, but Mayavadi atheists will try to prove that the absolute truth is impersonal in order to present their false imaginary meaning. They must adopt so much word jugglery and grammatical interpretation that they finally become ludicrous. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remarked that no one should hear the Mayavadi commentaries or purports to any Vedic literature. Verse 133, Upanishad Shabde Ye Mukhya Arthaya Se Artha Mukhya Vyasa Sutre Sabakaya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the Vedanta Sutra is the summary of all the Upanishads. Therefore, whatever direct meaning is there in the Upanishads is also recorded in the Vedanta Sutra or Vyasa Sutra. Purport: Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati has explained the word Upanishad in his Anubhashya. Please refer to Adi Lila 2nd chapter 5th verse and Adi Lila 7th chapter verses 106 and 108 for his explanation. Verse 134, Mukhyartha Chhadiya Kara Gaunartha Kalpana Abhida Vritti Chhadi Kara Shabder Lakshana. For each sutra, the direct meaning must be accepted without interpretation. However, you simply abandon the direct meaning and proceed with your imaginative interpretation. Verse 135, Pramaner Madhye Shruti Praman Pradhan Shruti Ye Mukhyartha Kahe Se Pramana. Although there is other evidence, the evidence given in the Vedic version must be taken as foremost. Vedic versions understood directly are first-class evidence. Purport: works that should be consulted are Srila Jiva Goswami's Tattva Sandarbha 10 and 11, Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary on that, and the following verses of the Brahma Sutra, Shastra Yonitvat, verses 1.1.3, Tarka Pratishtanat, verses 2.1.1, 11, and Shrutes Tu Shabdam Mulatvat, verse 2.1.27, as commented upon by Sri Ramanujarya, Sri Madhvacharya, Sri Bhaṭṭācārya, and Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan in his book Sarva Samvadini. Srila Jiva Goswami has noted that although there are 10 kinds of evidence, direct perception, the direct version, historical reference, hypothesis, and so on, and although they are all generally accepted as evidence, the person presenting a hypothesis, reading the Vedic version, perceiving or interpreting by his experience is certainly to be imperfect in 4 ways. That is, he is subject to committing mistakes, to becoming illusioned, to cheating, and to having imperfect senses. Although the evidence may be correct, the person himself is in danger of being misled due to his material defects. Apart from the direct presentation, there is a chance that an interpretation may not be perfect. Therefore, the conclusion is that only a direct presentation can be considered evidence, An interpretation cannot be accepted as evidence but may be considered proof of the evidence. In the Bhagavad-Gita, at the very beginning, it is said, Dhritarashtra uvacha dharam kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsavaha mamakaha pandavaschaiva kim akurvat sanjaya. The statements of the Bhagavad-Gita themselves prove that there is a place of religious pilgrimage named Kurukshetra where Pandavas and Kurus met to fight. After meeting there, what did they do? This was Dhritarashtra's inquiry to Sanjay. Although these statements are very clear, atheists try to interpret different meanings of the word Dharam, Kshetra and Kurukshetra. Therefore, Srila Jiva Goswami has warned us not to depend on any kind of interpretation. It is better to take the verses as they are without interpretation. Verse 136, Jivera asti vishtha dui shankha gomaya shruti vakye se dui maha pavitra haya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, conch shells and cow dung are nothing but the bones and stools of some living entity, but according to the Vedic version, they are both considered very pure. Purport: according to Vedic principles, bone and dung are generally considered very impure. If one touches the bone or stool, he must take a bath immediately. That is the Vedic injunction. Yet the Vedas also enjoin that a conch shell, although the bone of an animal, and cow dung, although the stool of an animal, are very much sanctified. Therefore, even though such statements appear contradictory on the basis of the Vedic version, we still accept the fact that the conch shells and cow dung are pure and sanctified. Verse 137, Swataha Pramana Veda Satya Yekaya Lakshan Karile Swataha Pramanaya Hani Haya. The Vedic statements are self-evident. Whatever is stated there must be accepted. If we interpret according to our own imagination, the authority of the Vedas is immediately lost. Purport: out of the four main types of evidence, direct perception, hypothesis, historical reference, and the Vedas, the Vedic evidence is accepted as the foremost. If we want to interpret the Vedic version, we must imagine an interpretation according to what we want to do. First of all, we set forth such an interpretation as a suggestion or hypothesis. As such, it is not actually true, and the self-evident proof is lost. Srila Madhvacharya, commenting on the aphorism Drishyate tu Vedant Sutra 2.1.6, quotes the Bhavishya Puran as follows: Rig Yajuh Samathar Bhasha Cha Bharatam Panchar Ratrakam Mool Ramayanam Chaiva Veda iti eva shabditaha Purnani cha yantha Vaishvanani vido vidu Swataha Pramanayam etesham datra kinchid vicharayet. The Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Athar Veda, Mahabharata, Pancharatra, and original Ramayana are all considered Vedic literature. The Purans that are especially meant for Vaishnavas, such as the Brahma Vaivarta Puran, Naradiya Puran, Vishnu Puran, and Bhagavad Puran, are also Vedic literature. Therefore, whatever is stated in such Purans or in the Mahabharata and Ramayana is self-evident. There is no need for interpretation. The Bhagavad-Gita is also within the Mahabharata. Therefore, all the statements of the Bhagavad-Gita are self-evident. There is no need for interpretation, and if we do not interpret, the entire authority of the Vedic literature is lost. Verse 138, Vyas Sutrera Artha Yaiche Suryera Kirana Swakalpita Bhashya Megha Kare Achadana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, the Brahma Sutra compiled by Srila Vyasadeva is as radiant as the sun. One who tries to interpret its meaning simply covers that sunshine with a cloud. Verse 139, Veda Purane kahe Brahma nirupana sai Brahma brihat vastu Ishvara lakshana. All the Vedas and literature that strictly follows the Vedic principles explain that the Supreme Brahman is the absolute truth, the greatest of all and the feature of the Supreme Lord. Purport: the greatest of all is Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna states in Bhagavad-Gita 15.15, Vedescha sarver aham eva Vedyah. Among all the Vedas, I am to be known. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, it is said that the absolute truth is understood in three phases, namely Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagwan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagwan iti shabdyate. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the last word in the understanding of the absolute truth, Brahman. Verse 140, Sarveshwarya Paripurna Swayam Bhagwan Tanre Nirakar Kari Karaha Vyakhyan. Actually, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, absolute truth, is a person. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, full with all opulences, you are trying to explain him as an impersonal and formless. Brahman means Brahatatva, the greatest of all. The smallest of all is Sri Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, he possesses all potencies and opulences in full. Therefore, the absolute truth is greatest of all in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether one says Brahman or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The fact is that the same, for they are identical. In the Bhagavad-Gita, Arjuna accepted Krishna as Param Brahma, Parama Vishnu, Paramadhama. Although the living entity or material nature are sometimes described as Brahman, Parabrahman, the Supreme, the greatest of all Brahmans, is still Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is full with all opulences, and as such he possesses all riches, all strength, all reputation, all knowledge, and all the beauty and renunciation. He is eternally present and eternally supreme. If one tries to explain the Supreme Personality impersonally, one distorts the real meaning of Brahman. Okay, so we will continue our reading from verse 141 next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.